Hi, welcome to my nose is so stuffed up. Welcome to my journey. My name is Cherie. Everyone is welcome here. Just don't bring no problems because I'm a problem solver. Okay? Uh, I am out and about. Like I said, I try to get out every day for at least an hour. All right? That's like my rule. My rule is that I need to get out for an hour every day. Do not sit up there in the house all day. Because if you do it once, you're going to do it twice. And if you do it twice, you're going to want to just stay in the house. I mean, I am just going to want to stay in the house. So, it was a beautiful day all day today. It's 5 o'clock. Now it's starting to look like overcast, right? I fed the pitties their dinner. Like I said, I don't feel bad at all about, sleeping in, because a lot of times, I'm doing work in the unconscious. Okay, when I'm unconscious, right? When I'm asleep, I'm actually working, right? Because I work both when I'm awake and I work when I'm asleep. I'm always working. Always, right? Like I said, the majority of us, we die working. Okay? The majority of us die working. And just like Trump said, it doesn't matter if you get paid or you don't get paid. You're going to work. Right? And that's true. I mean, it is. Our bodies will not sustain itself if we don't do something. We got to move around, keep our muscles going. We got to breathe to keep oxygen coming in and out of our system, to keep our heart pumping. And that's just how it is. And I don't see that really changing anytime soon. Unless we become, like immobile batteries, tethered to the system, and the system is like, you don't have to do nothing, just sit there and let me just take your energy. Take your energy. So, like this Volkswagen dealer has like an oversized inventory of cars. Yeah. This way. So, like I said, I don't remember my dreams when I wake up. And I think the reason why I don't remember my dreams is because before I even get up, I try to solve the problem even before I wake up. Right? If I'm getting something to my subconscious, we're going to work on it then. Right? We're not going to sit up here and dwell on some shit. truck here just broke the law. He was in the turn only lane and he went straight. Like I said, these motherfuckers out here, they act like the law is just a suggestion. McLean Fleet. And he's in a big ass semi truck. This is the world that we live in, and how they allowed these people to give less than their best. It's beyond me. It's beyond me, right? And it would be something different if less than their best was at least good, but their best is adequate, right? Because they're not used to producing. So when they do produce, they think that they had did something spectacular. Right, and I understand that. I do. Because in my old age, I had gotten really, laxed, right? Because I'm like, well, you want to put me out to pasture, then I'm going to rest, right? And my whole thing is, if y'all hadn't been so money hungry and greedy, that you could have put me out to pasture and not even have to worry about me. And even though motherfuckers be saying, I ain't worried about you anyway, I already know you worried about me, right? I know, right? I live rent-free in your head, and I've lived rent-free in your head from the day you met me, right? Because let me tell you something, you met me for a reason, right? Anybody that comes upon me is getting ready to go through some dramatic spiritual changes. Period. That's why I'm so memorable. And I know you guys think it's real cute to sit up there and talk about how you're going to take me out. I'm going to take you out. You going to die, right? And I'll be like, I'm going to die? You're going to finish up my assignment for me? Right? And then come to find out, you're a weak motherfucker. Right? You think just because you feel Machiavelli that you can deal with everybody on that level, but not everybody can. Not everybody subscribes to your type of magic. Right? Now, like my exes, yeah. I live rent free in their head. I live rent-free in their head. Right. Because I keep trying to tell these guys that some women you don't possess them. Right? You keep thinking you enter into these women and you're going to infect them. Okay, let's keep it real. You keep thinking you're going to enter into me and possess me, and I'm going to tell you, no, I'm going to possess you. Right? I've had men sit up here and say, my God, you fucked me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you went up inside me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because they were so used to, them being the ones to think, to feel like, they can go inside a woman and then possess her, through tactics of manipulation. Right? And I'm just like, no, it's common sense. When you go up inside somebody, they possess you. Period. Now, you can, play that game, no, you don't possess me, right? And then, try to figure out why you can't walk away. And then try to figure out why you can't walk away for years. And then years after that, you can't figure out why you can't stop thinking about them. Why I can't stop thinking about them? They must have put a spell on me. No, baby, you just didn't know about spirituality. And oh my gosh, I know when it comes to like men who are Machiavelli, they love to jack off to their memories. And they love to pretend like it's actually happening to that person. And they try to send me that weird ass thought, right? So you know what I do? I masturbate in return. And I give it back to them. And I show them what a real climax feels like. And they're like, they get so mad. They're like, no. Okay, all right. Damn, Capricorn season. Why you being so nasty? Yep. So anyway, I looked up this guy who gave me his card. I looked him up. I guess he was sending me some vibes, And obviously this is somebody that, is very talented and, has definite ability to channel frequencies. I thought that was kind of interesting. But here's the whole thing, right? The whole thing is when I said hello, he thought I was saying hello to him, right? I was saying hello to the guard sitting at the front desk because he was staring at me and I was staring at him. And I was like, let me just break the silence and say hello. Hello. And then, I just kept it moving. And then that's when this Tom guy, I guess he thought I was saying hello to him. Right? So, but I wasn't. I was not saying hello to him. And then when he said hello, then I said hello to him. Because I was like, oh, hello. Right? So I ended up saying hello twice. He didn't catch that. Now, I don't know. This guy, he's been into a lot of different things from what I could tell, because I Googled his name, and his name came up, as being a minister. I'm like, oh, that he's at the park already, right? Then there was another person with the same name that came up as a pastor. Like I said, out the park, out of it, out, right? Why do I say that? Because I'm not in alignment with religion. I'm in alignment with spirituality. Religion to me is for people who have no self-discipline and control. That's what religion is to me. You need to have religion. You need people to tell you what to do. You need an intermediary between you and God, like a representative. You need a spiritual lawyer just to justify your fucking behaviors on this earth. That's how I see people who walk in religion. And that's okay. Right? It's okay. However, it's just not my cup of tea. Right? My cup of tea, I'm like, I do my own thing, I believe what I believe, I'm not gonna say you can't tell me that I'm doing something wrong, but you're gonna have to give me something practical that I can understand as to why it's wrong. Right? You can't tell me, oh, it's wrong because the Bible says so. Right? Because I know it is man who wrote the Bible. Right? They didn't have writing a long time ago. They did not have the written word a long time ago. So that's why I said you really can't tell me about religion. Now, you can direct me to a passage of religion, and I might look into it, right? Because there are great tidbits of knowledge and spirituality that is in the Bible. I am not saying that I just reject the Bible, because I don't. I don't reject the Bible. Now, I only see it as a instruction manual. Something that can give you foresight. Something that can give you foresight when you don't see things. Right? You can't see you can't see the future of things. You're able to see, oh, this is sort of my situation, and you read that, and then you kind of walk yourself mentally through. You know what? I never realized the flower of a garland is the sunflower. Well, I'll be sure to remember that next time. So yeah, I was watching the lady that I had seen where she had bought a truck. Well, she started out in a van, and she started doing van life. Then she bought her a truck and a camper, right? And she just upgraded her camper, right, and bought a camper that's suitable for Alaska's temperature. And I thought that was very special, because I guess, I think she is choosing to go up there in the colder weather, basically to get away from, a lot of homeless people who are, out in the wilderness, right? Because the homeless people are not going to pick areas, where they will freeze to death. And, I was thinking to myself, but that's so smart of her, to do that. And she doesn't mind the cold. She doesn't. I've seen her in the cold. She doesn't mind the cold. I've seen her more upset about the heat than I ever seen her about the cold. And I watched her many times. Terminix International. Turimix goes to Monterrey, Torreon, Durango, Pedra Negra, Zacatecas, Fresnillo, San Luis Potosi. Yeah, they found a way, to have their own bus line system going in and out of Mexico. And some of them are really nice looking buses. I mean, a whole lot better looking than Greyhound. One of these because I like them so much. This is the Mountain Dew Kickstart. I love it. Love is a strong word. I like it a lot. But my whole thing about living in a van or a vehicle is that if I was to get in an accident, and just about every single time I get on the road, I always have these near miss accidents. It's like almost every time. More, I would say 90% of the time, I've had to use defensive measures to avoid an accident. And like 1% of the time, it's actually me being somewhat careless and almost getting in an accident. Like last week, right, when I was riding around at nighttime, and it's in an area where they were doing construction, and they changed, the lanes of the roads. It's a temporary change, but yeah. I'm not sure where that Jeep had came from. If they were speeding, trying to get around me, and ended up being on the side of me, or if they had sped down, yeah, they did not. They were from behind me and tried to, like swoop around me quick. was talking about, right? He was in the service. He's a musician. He's still playing band, so he's still going out to the club, right? And then he's also a minister. I'm like, wow, how does that work out for you, right? Because that's got to be, temptation at every level, going to the club. But, a lot of these religious men, they feel like, if they got tempted, it was the fault of the woman, right? And, I couldn't even believe how one day I was listening to the Apocrypha of Esdras, that these people, these men, had all of these, they said they had all of these strange wives, okay? They had all of these strange wives, and it was time to put an end to them, right? And the children that were born from these estranged wives. So they literally was killing their wives. Right? And yet they thought they were spiritual men. And I was trying to figure out, what kind of spirit was that? Right? Because even the priest had estranged wives. Plural. Wives, plural. Wives with an S. Right? And they felt like, when appropriate, they would get rid of the wife and the kids. And that there, regardless to however they feel, is going to make them more spiritually grounded, because they won't have to face and deal with, their sins, right? What about the people who invested in raising these so-called wives, right? Because it takes it. I mean, even if they found these wives at 15 and 14, that's still 14 years, right? 20 years is a whole fucking career that deserves a pension. Okay, so that's another thing, right? I had contacted Fidelity about my pension, and I was very, very, very upset, right? Because Fidelity said that it's going to take them 30 days for them to calculate my benefit and get it downloaded onto the system for me to view, and then set up where I can get that money, into my account, as soon as possible. It may not be on my 61st birthday, but, it might be close to that. And I told her, I said, look, I really did. I told her the reason why I got mad is because I told her, I said, I don't care how much it is. I just want to set it up to where whatever the payment is, that it goes to my account. And she was like, I'm sorry, no, we can't do it that way. And then I started getting mad again because, she was like, it's going to take about 20 days, 20 business days. And then another 5 days to get it downloaded. And I got so upset with her that I ended up telling her that, see, this is the reason why. This is the reason why right here, why people are preferring to deal with AI than to be dealing with human beings who will sit up here and tell us that it's going to take 30 days to do a calculation. And then another 5 business days to get it downloaded into the system. AI would never do that. So then, while I was in my feisty mood, I'm like, let me go ahead and call the tribe and find out why they sending out these damn power of attorneys for trying to scam people out of their land. Right? And so I called them up, and and I told them, I said, look, you guys are scamming. They're like, oh, no, this is a proper and legal way. I said, it's legal, but it's scamming, because you don't have an offer on the table. He was like, oh, well, this is just so that, an offer can be, that they can start an offer. I'm like, no, you should not be sitting up here utilizing the maximum authority, just to get a proxy vote. You should be going through the proxy. Like, well, no, people don't like to waste their time, if, trying to make a deal. And I'm like, well, if they don't want to waste their time to try to make a deal, then, they're not going to get paid. Period. And then I got upset again, and I said, now who are you? I said, I thought I was supposed to be talking to Bobby in land management. Right? And he said, well, she gave me the message and told me to contact you to let you know, what this paper was. So I get mad, right? And I told him, I said, I've already blasted this form of scamming on the internet. He was like, what? I said, yeah, I put it on the internet. What you doing? And I said I should come up there, right? Because I think, they should find a consultant, a logger, pay a logger to go around and find out which properties look as if they are ready to be harvested. Right? And I kind of got upset at this man because I told him, I said, timber is a very high commodity. He says, yeah, it's very lucrative, And he kind of tried to downplay it, right? I said, let me tell you something. Not only is it a high commodity, but it takes a long time to grow, right? Because a tree takes about 20 years to really mature into being, timber that they can actually, cut down into usable pieces enough to where they can make money off of it. Yeah, and then I kept having to apologize to this man. I'm saying, look, I'm sorry to get real emotional about this, but I hope you have a problem sleeping. Going out here, sending out, powers of attorney, and you don't even have a deal on the table, right? because I immediately was downloaded to this guy I used to date in California. He used to get paid by Shell Oil Company, right? And he would go around to these homes and would offer like a couple $100 for the mineral rights, right, on their property. And he would tell them, using the scare tactic, that you might as well go on and get this $200 and give them the mineral rights, or they'll just siphon your mineral rights, from another location. Right? And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of shitty. Yeah, he was like, yeah, and then I guess, he tried to make himself feel better about what he was doing, because he said, sometimes these people, they could use the $200. I'm thinking to myself, $200? They're not going to do anything with the mineral rights. They don't have the money to mine and refine the minerals. I was like, wow. But that was almost 35, 40 years ago. Right? And he was contracting with Shell. It was a subsidiary of Shell Oil Company. And like I said, that's what made me think about this person that was, and here's the thing. Even though legitimately you can ask for, somebody's rights. Anybody can ask for it, right? But the way that they had set this up, and the fact that they had got a list of names from the tribe, would probably make people think that this is the process. And he tried to make me feel like, well, this is the process that you use. I said, no, you should be getting bids. Right? And he was like, they don't want to bid on it. Who don't want to bid on it? Right? Because then my mind went straight to, aren't you getting paid? So yeah, I went to sleep a little upset yesterday. So I had plenty of reconciliations to do subconsciously. Right? Because I dealt with Fidelity, I dealt with the BIA, and I also went to the unemployment office. So I also went to the Amazon, like I said, I went to the Amazon website to see if they had any jobs opening, and they didn't have no jobs opening for me. So that's something that, I'm trying to figure out, is it our economy to where, we just don't have no jobs opening? Or, did they put me on the, do not hire list? So that is something that I will be looking into. Because we were definitely at odds, because I was trying to battle with what I call sexual discrimination in the warehouse, right? Because there was a lot of sexual discrimination in the warehouse. They tried to use leverage, to manipulate women, to do favors, or else, their manager would definitely give them the hardest job and then ride them, right? So that means you can't be late without getting a write-up. You have to do your job properly within the quota, right? And we're talking about at Amazon, it's like every 6 to 10 seconds, you have to be productive with something. And the lighter it is, then the more you have to do. Like if you were just doing small envelopes, you had to do like 1,600 minimum of sorting of envelopes per hour. Right? So that's like an envelope, 2 envelopes every second. Let's just say it like that. So it's about 2 envelopes every second. So yeah, we but I had only had one write-up. And the write-up that I got, well, I had 2 write-ups. Well, I had one warning, one discussion, and the discussion was there was an item on the floor, and I was the last person to have touched that robotic bin. And I'm trying to tell him, I said, look, that's a robotic bin. It spins, things fall out of there. That had nothing to do with me, And, and I told him, I said, I ain't trying to hear it. Right? And when they seen that didn't faze me, that they couldn't control me and make me feel like I was underneath their power, and that, whatever, they didn't like that, right? And so, I did basically say, don't come to me about shit that fell on the floor. Because, you're going to have to tell me where it fell on the floor and et cetera, et cetera. But even if it fell on the floor within the 33 square feet, or of the parameter of my station, that doesn't mean, that I pulled it out and knocked it down. You could just sit up there and look at them things straddle down, and they'll be rocking and rolling down, on the warehouse floor, and shit just falls out just from the rocking of the bin. So then, I started having a problem with amnesty, right? Because all of these pussy boys, was working in amnesty, and I'm like, why are all these pussy boys working in amnesty? They're walking around here, chit-chatting, walking, and they walking the aisles, paired up, like they're going, like, what the hell, and then they're like, yeah, well, we got 5 minutes to answer an amnesty call. I'm like, you have 5 minutes? And sometimes these guys, if you try to tell them to stay on one side of the warehouse and the other one stay on the other side of the warehouse, these motherfuckers will meet up in the middle of the warehouse floor. I am not lying. I have seen them, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. You stopped, because when they have to stop the robots, right? They stop the robots that is within 30 feet of them, right? They either stop it at 30 feet, or I think it's like 10 feet of them if they're at a station, and I'm like, listen, I don't know why you don't like your job, but if you don't like your job, let somebody else do it. So then, whatever little boys club they had going on at that warehouse, they was pissed off at me. And I'm like, your position is supposed to be, supportive. That's why you're not on the clock. You're supposed to support the workers. And these motherfuckers would be sitting around here. If they wasn't talking to each other, then they was deep diving on their phone. Got me a job abandonment. That's the only thing they could have me down there as, because I just, I told them, I said, I got the flu, I can't come in, They were like, well, make sure you bring us a doctor's note if you, run out of PTO or UPT and, you can't cover it. And I was like, okay, so I tried to, get a doctor's note, and they were like, no. You have your doctor fill out our 6-page forms. Like, damn. My telemed doctor is not going to fill out these forms. Because I already asked them, and they were like, no, we just give you a note And that is it. And the note that he even said, he was like, "Nah, you go on back to work and just take this amoxicillin." After a day. And that's something that, I don't know, maybe when you're younger, when I was younger, it just seemed like it was mind over matter, right? Because when I was younger, I felt like I never got sick, right? Never got sick to the point where I just had to stop what I was fucking doing and go to the doctor. There were some days that, I felt like I needed to rest, and I would, utilize, the opportunity to rest and heal. And usually when I was younger, that wasn't a problem. It was like it worked. Rest and heal. But as I started getting older, it wasn't as easy. Like a few years ago, I had stepped on a rake, right? And my healing abilities of stepping on that rake, I didn't lose much blood. It didn't get infected. I had a definite hole in my foot, and it was starting to heal like pretty damn quick, right? Out of necessity, right? It's like I live alone, I cannot, be struggling, with a foot injury. So thankfully, that got taken care of. Like I said, I was still hobbling around. I healed myself. I didn't even go to the doctor for it. I wonder if they have beehives up there. But yeah, this last time, right, I never had to worry about COVID, never got sick during COVID. Now, in February, I did get sick. I didn't know if I had COVID. I didn't know what the hell was going on with my body. My body ached. I couldn't breathe. And that to me is a key part. One of the most important parts about healing is breathing. You have to have breath, to actually, I guess, summon the healing. But if you ain't breathing, chances are you're not going to be able to summon, like you think you used to. And ever since then, I started having allergies. Ever since then, I started having asthma. Ever since then, I started having breathing bronchial problems. Okay. undervalued trailer campers, RVs in storage. So yeah, and I can understand why people will get involved in religions. They get involved with religion or under a religious overhead, right? Or umbrella, a religious umbrella. Let's say not overhead, because it's an umbrella where they get tax deductions, they get tax write-offs, they get, to ask for donations, grants, those were the agencies, that actually got the food and stuff, during COVID. Remember? During COVID, they gave out they distributed all of this food to the charitable organizations to distribute to the people. That's why a lot of times, when you go to these food banks, you're getting food that, has been stored, right? A lot of it has been stored through, flash freezing, cooling, frozen warehouses, yeah, they got a lot of those around, right? And these same frozen warehouses, will also, invest in, Bitcoin, and they would decide, how to manipulate the market by storing certain food items or certain products. It's not my world, because in my world there wouldn't be this private property privacy going on. I would have access to look at every business audit at any time and make assessments as needed. Right? And that would just be how it is. Because I already seen how, especially corporations, once they find out that they're going to do an audit, they pick out who the auditor is going to speak to, what cases are going to be reviewed, and then, if they can, they will spend the rest of the time hobnobbing, taking them out to lunch, and before you know it, you're like, damn, I had such a good time, yeah, great, talk to you later, you're gonna give me a good report though, right? And they do that. That's what they do, right? They don't even know that that's a form of corruption. Right? Because the auditor, they were supposed to be able to go in and assess what needs to be looked at instead of being told what to look at. So anyway, I did do a couple of complaints and sent it to the BIA on their website, because now the BIA has a website, right? They have an official website where you can put complaints down there. And I think that everybody who has been swindled out of their inheritance, because the BIA gave, the last will and testimonies back to the tribe to government their own land management, you need to put your complaint into the BIA. Right now they have a website. I was trying to figure out, where it would go. I made my complaint under documents, because if they're not holding on to the last will and testimony, then somebody can just walk up there with a fake power of attorney form, or even a forged one, right? Because this, just like I showed you how this guy gave me a power of attorney, and yet, there was no reason for him to just ask me for power of attorney to do a transaction that wasn't even on the table yet. It was just give me power of attorney over your timber. What he was asking for was for me to just give him the timber. And if he feels generous or nice enough, he might give me some money in return. But of course, he made it known that, he's gonna have to figure out the logistics. First he's gonna have to find the buyers, he's gonna have to find the logistics of processing the timber, and also reseeding, right? To reseed the replanting of the timber that was taken. And I'm like, whoa, you done took, great, powers away from landowners. At this juncture, this type of, power of attorney is only for people who are incapacitated to make decisions for themselves. And true enough, if anybody signs those forms, obviously, they don't have the capacity to make decisions for themselves, because they didn't see it as a scam. Isn't that terrible? Yeah, I went to sleep pretty upset last night. And when I go to sleep, I become multi-dimensional. So I do a lot of work when I'm asleep. Just because, down here in the 3D, women can't do much work without being blocked, sabotaged, or harmed by the manosphere and the manosphere's minions. So you really have to, do your work in the 5D. Now, most of the time people don't know how to get to the 5D, unless it's through meditation or when they're sleeping. And that's all I have to say about that. like